Alright, hey there YouTube, welcome back. So today we're doing a distributor rebuild. This is a Slant 6 distributor, and I noticed when I was checking the timing chain slack on my truck a couple weekends ago that it looked like there was a little bit of play in the distributor as well as whatever was there from the timing chain. So it's getting a new timing chain. Probably by the time I post this video, basically it's going to get a timing chain on January 12th, 13th, whatever this upcoming Sunday is. Today's the 10th, so it's going to bug me. Anyway, Sunday. Today's Thursday, January 10th. So I'm rebuilding this distributor. This is actually another one I had off another motor. I've already taken it apart. As you can see, it's completely hollow. There's nothing in it, which means I took it apart. Here's the distributor shaft. I went ahead and took apart the, I'm not going to recurve it or anything. I actually don't know how to do that and don't have the machines to do it. I'm finally getting a good look at the springs on a Slant 6 because the distributor that came out of it was locked out. It was a lean burn distributor, so I'm finally getting to see these springs. There's a heavy spring and a light spring. So this is an OEM original distributor from '73. I have it might be from '73. The engine's a '73. This had like grease crayon or grease pen on it, so it might have come out of a junkyard. So I'll have to check the number. But it did have the factory. Where did I put that? There's a little aluminum tag that is that has the part number for the distributor on it. It has the calibration number for the distributor, so I'll know the timing curve. I can find out the timing curve based on that. I don't know what it is. So I've already taken apart the breaker plate, and there's 3 little brass buttons. There's one here peeking out there. Let's see, there you can see all 3. That's underneath the pickup coil plate. I went ahead and, oh great, look at that. Come on, there we go. Alright, so it's lined back up. So I'm going to go ahead and I've already greased those up, so there's nice movement there. I've cleaned all the old grease and nastiness off of this vacuum pot and the hold down pieces. I'm going to paint this and the little hold downs like either a gloss black or flat black, something real basic looking that's going to look clean under there. Kind of cleaned this up, took it over to the parts washer and just went over it. So what we're going to do is change these bushings that are inside here. That's probably the biggest portion of doing this rebuild and the most difficult part and the coolest part. The rest of it was kind of boring. I'm just cleaning up parts and I'm trying to get a good, let's see, there we go. You can see the bushing sticking out of the top and the bushing in the bottom there. There's 2 bushings. They're bronze bushings, and guess what? You can go buy them at Ace Hardware. Not a sponsor. But here's the 2 bushings here. These are 1/2 inch ID, 5/8 OD, and these are 1 inch and 1/8. You're supposed to get 1 inch bushings, but there's a gap between the ones in here, so I'm going to pull these out and see if maybe I can use the 1 inch and 1/8. If not, I can just cut it off. It's bronze. It cuts very easily. So now there's an ingenious way to do this, and there's a reason why you see half of a 3-jaw puller here. It takes some clever individual who wrote an article that I read online. I can't remember the name of the website. I think it was like Plymouth Car Club somewhere. It was some sort. I think it was somewhere in New England. I don't think it said Pennsylvania, but it was somebody up north in the Northeast area that had written an article about changing these bushings. And the reason I'm having to do this, I just put a reman distributor on the truck like a year ago. They're junk. If you buy one, basically expect that you're getting something that you can rebuild if you get a remanufactured one. So I'll be doing the same thing to the one once it comes out of the truck when I do the timing chain. I'm basically making it so I can just drop this in, set the timing, and then have another distributor I can rebuild and have a good extra one, you know, for another engine to run on the stand or what have you, or a spare. I did get a new gear, and I got a gear kit which comes with a shim washer and a roll pin. Now, most setups you can only buy the gear by themselves, and it's a little nylon gear, so I'd recommend changing it if yours is old, just cause it's $5.57 with tax. So it's not expensive. Took a couple days to come in, not a big deal. It is a Napa part number DG404 for that one, and I've tried to interchange it. It will interchange to a couple of different part numbers that only are the gear. So if you can find a kit that is another number from the Napa number, because I don't want to be tied down to one brand if I don't have to be, but you know, there is a number you can interchange. If you happen to know another number that's the whole kit, I'd like to know about that, so leave that in the comments. But Napa DG404 is a gear kit, so this thing's all going to be fresh. So what's cool is this is a 9/16 by 18 thread, and this is a 9/16 by 18 tap. Since this is 1/2 inch on the inside, 5/8 on the outside, you can make 9/16 threads inside of it and use it as its own. You just put threads in it, put this in there, turn this as a nut, and it comes right out. So it's pretty ingenious. I have to give, hopefully I can remember the name of that website, so maybe I can give credit to them. But it was definitely some kind of Plymouth Car Club of New England somewhere. I don't remember their name. I would love to give them credit though, because it's a really smart idea. Yeah, this is bronze, a very soft metal, so I'm already starting threads by hand. So this should go pretty easily. And being that it's a bearing material, you don't really have to lubricate it. It's not going to hurt the tap. It's extremely soft. I mean, well, maybe I should be more careful. Getting a little, oh, this is so easy, and just getting a little, not paying attention. So, yeah, we're just going to turn these threads into this, cut them in there. Yeah, these are turning very easily because this, like I said, this is a soft bearing material, so it kind of self-lubricates. You're not going to hurt the tap by not putting any lube on it. But it's going nicely. We're going to thread all, I'm going to actually try to thread all the way through to the other side, to the other bushing. Yeah, but as you can see, I don't need a holding fixture or anything to hold this distributor body down, and we're just cutting chips. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It would be a lot easier if I was holding this in a vise, but I don't have one out here. Turn it back to clear your chip. It's a weird feeling. It's kind of gritty because I guess it's such a soft material. It makes really small chips. It just has a real gritty feeling to it when you're cutting it. I know a lot of people don't really like machining yellow metals. Oh, look, a nice pile of little bronze chips. Some people don't like machining yellow metals like on a lathe. Yeah, I think they're gummy or something. I think they call it. They say it gets kind of gummy. Almost wish I had another adjustable wrench or something. I wish I had some kind of holding fixture for this. It'd be a lot easier. It's not too bad, but it's really cold here, so my hands are... my hands are hurting. Yeah, I'm punching y'all in the face. I would actually like to get good at. I'm hoping I can actually be pretty good at doing these rebuilds and get to, you know, just get to the point where I can kind of, you know, hopefully serve the Slant 6 and Flathead Chrysler 6 community at least. Maybe even some V8 guys, because the distributors aren't that much different. But I'd like to, you know, not a lot of people rebuild their own distributors. Reman distributors are junk, and this is pretty well known. I'm finding out for myself. I figured it would be okay. It was for a while, but I think its time has come. The reason why changing these bushings is pretty critical is you want good, solid timing. Your ignition timing needs to be stationary. It needs to not be bouncing around. You don't need to have your, you see right here, this kind of star wheel looking thing. That is a reluctor wheel. It'll have 6 teeth on a 6-cylinder, 8 on an 8-cylinder, 4 on 4, whatever, on this style. But here's the pickup coil. But you can see that little tab right there. That is the, there's supposed to be a very specific air gap between the teeth on the reluctor wheel and that pickup coil. It's 8 thousandths. You don't want that gap to be bouncing around because it won't trigger the ignition coil. In my case, it's triggering an ignition module. You're not going to get the correct, it's not going to know what to do. It's going to be missing, dropping out spark. Could be throwing the timing off because it's bouncing around and it's actually affecting the placement of the, it's actually affecting the rotation of the distributor. So it would affect your timing, and that's not good. You really don't want that, because, you know, you're losing power, you're losing mileage, all kinds of negative things from having your timing bounce around. It's another reason why I'm changing the timing chain. It's retarded by 9 or 10 degrees when, you know, a new chain should be about 1 on the silent type chain that I'm putting in it. I need to find something to hold this down with, because it's really not going that good. It's uncomfortable to try to hold this and turn this at the same time. It's like, oh, I know. I don't want to break anything either. Alright, I'll put some kind of lubrication in there. I don't have any on hand. I don't even know if that would help too much. So I've got a cylinder head for a Slant 6 right here. In another video I'm going to show you guys how to CC a combustion chamber, measure your chamber volume. Wow, those are actually really nice looking threads. I'm almost through the top bushing. Alright, I'll go ahead and finish it, and I'll just do them separately. The write-up said to do them both, but it's going to be really hard for me to get down in the distributor body with a adjustable wrench. So I'm just going to thread it from the bottom, which is not going to produce reverse threads. I'm going to thread it from the bottom when I do the second bushing. That should make things a little bit easier for me. The reason this gets more difficult as it goes on is because the tap is actually slightly tapered. It's not like a pipe thread tap where it's actually making a tapered thread, but it does cut deeper as it goes along, and there's more surface of threads being cut as it goes along. So it's making it difficult that these cap hold down tabs are kind of getting in the way a little bit too as I'm going. But yeah, you want good solid timing. It's there's been a little bit of drivability issues, and actually lately it's been becoming a reliability issue, and I think what's happening is a reluctor gap on the other distributors closing up on me, and it's not triggering the coil. I've heard of someone else having an issue like this, but you know, I need it to be right, so I'm making it right, and I'll know my distributor's good. I'll know the distributor's not the problem, because I've gone through it and done everything to factory specs. This is a OEM Chrysler pickup coil. It does work, so I'll know that I'm not dealing with aftermarket parts, which, as I've said in a previous video, is not usually a problem, but sometimes it is. I don't think that the pickup coil on the other truck on the truck doesn't seem to be bad, because it normally runs fine. And if I go to, you know, when it loses spark, like I'll just come out in the morning and it just won't have any spark, and I'll go to check it, and it won't have any spark, but it'll have the coil, all the resistance measurements on the coil are good, and everything on the pickup coil is good. Nothing's grounded out. It's got, you know, good wiring to the ignition module I'm using. So it's always got me stumped, but it doesn't seem like the module's being triggered. So it's kind of hard to get to the bottom of that. And the only thing I haven't messed with in my particular case is the distributor. So that's why I'm doing this. You know, I think it's cool that I have the ability to take care of these bushings. Basically build myself a good distributor and just call it done, call it good. Alright, we got threads all the way through, so go ahead and get this wrench out, and we'll proceed with pulling the bushing out. This is going to be the tricky part, is coming up with a something to accept the bushing as it comes out of the top of this. I might be able to let the puller just sit down on the distributor body. Oh, that looks nice. Those threads turned out pretty good. Let's see. Yeah. So, here we go. Here goes 9. Yep, 9/16 by 18 threads. There's enough surface area with the little, with this little piece here that this actually might work better than what was recommended to use on that site. Just because I have good visibility down in the distributor, I can see what's happening the whole time. Yeah, I'm just going to run it through until I see that it's gone through the threads and the bushing. Which it hasn't yet, so I wonder if I've actually threaded. Oh. I actually threaded some aluminum. That's interesting. So they did say something about that's weird. They did say something about that. I think I know what I'll do. I'm gonna have to find like a piece of pipe or something to go down in here. See if I can find a little small section of exhaust pipe or something to accept this bushing, because that idea is not going to work out that good. Yeah, I threaded the distributor housing. Isn't that interesting? I threw you on the ground, stepped on the charge cable. You know, blooper reel here. I think this will work. Cut of exhaust adapter. Hopefully that's enough to reach all the way down into the bottom. It might be. It's definitely enough for the top. Yeah, it's starting to look pretty ghetto, isn't it? Well, it is what it is. It'll work. It will work. And at this point, I believe we are pulling the bushing out. I mean, it would have to be. So they were saying to use a nut and a washer, and they might have been right. Maybe next time. Yeah, we got to be pulling that out of there. Yep, we are. It does come out pretty easily. This isn't a very tight fit. There we go. Bushing's out. That went pretty well. How am I going to get that out of there? Alright. So you might be able to see, yeah, you can see how where it accepts the, or the distributor accepts that bushing. And you can see it kind of narrows down a little bit. And I actually threaded the distributor housing, so it's not going to hurt anything. But I believe I am going to have to yeah, see, these are a little bit shorter. These bushings I got are a little bit, or the bushings that are in it are a little bit shorter, so that's okay. They did say that was going to be the case. So that is fine, because again, this is a really soft material. I can remove material off of this pretty quickly. Without too much trouble, and it's only 1/8 of an inch, so, and I have the old bushings to compare to. Need to get a pair of pliers or something, because that needs to come off. Let me see what I got. Hopefully I don't need too big of a pair of pliers to do this. It was pretty easily threaded on. So we're just going to see if some needle nose will handle it. So I'm going to go out to the car right now. Looks like I'm going out there. I don't have anything right here. Alright, be right back again. Alright. Come on. I'm gonna have to file these down. That's gonna take way too long. I'm gonna use like the die grinder and clean them up, or get them close and then clean them up, because I don't have any other way to do that. But I'll just be careful. All right. So now we're gonna thread this bottom bushing. I should have enough exhaust pipe. That's just gonna be, that's not gonna be that great, getting the bottom one out. Actually, if I thread, how am I gonna do this? If I thread the bottom bushing, I could just tap the bushing out with the forcing screw since it's long enough, but the problem is that going through the bushing is when you start actually tapping threads into, you actually start cutting threads into the distributor housing. So that's not going to work. Now this is going to be a weird problem to solve. Now the write-up I looked at was for, I believe it was for flathead 6s. And that's where he noted that flatheads and slant 6s took the same bushings for the distributor. So look at that, I even got a tool to hold this for me, so it's going to make my job a lot easier. Don't be lazy, just go to your vehicle and get your tools. Or have your tools with you before you start the video. There is actually a specific in-play specification for this distributor shaft too. You want no more than 6 thousandths of run out or play in the shaft, and then you want 7 thousandths for your in play, and then your reluctor gap is 8 thousandths. So relatively tight tolerances here, but that's going to give you rock solid timing. It's going to be timing that was acceptable from the factory, and you know, if you depending on how bad your situation is, it could get your vehicle running again or restore some lost performance if your timing was jumping around. Which in my case, I predict that having a freshly rebuilt distributor in it's going to help. But it's going to be hard to tell what did what because I'm putting a timing set in it, so that's already going to be a huge deal. To put it into perspective, I have an adjustable cam gear on my Civic, and that's sole purpose is to be adjusted. It's designed for you to move your cam timing around. I can't go, the maximum I can go is 8 degrees, and that's from full retarded to full advance. I think it's actually 8 degrees. So this should give you a rough idea of how big of a deal that is. That's maxed out. Like, that's kind of a big deal. That's a whole tooth off. That's actually a whole tooth off on that Civic. On a D series engine, a tooth is 8 degrees. And I've had it a tooth off before. It ran, and it ran like crap. It was sluggish, and well, guess what my truck does? It runs sluggish. I mean, you really got to stand on it to really go anywhere. It doesn't feel like a Slant 6 should. I've been in other vehicles with Slant 6s, and they just don't feel like that. It doesn't feel like a Slant 6 in a heavy vehicle, because I'm used to it being in a car and I'm in a truck. It's just like, no, this doesn't feel right. The cams are different from a 72 slant and an 87 slant, but it's not that big of a difference. The power numbers are pretty comparable between the 2 years. I'm only using 72 as a number because I know someone who has a 72, and theirs was faster than mine, and it was had a dead cylinder because it had a burn exhaust valve. This thing is just pitiful. It's not so bad now with the fuel injection in the header, but when I first bought it with the 1 barrel and it had been sitting for a while, and it was horrible. I don't even know what to tell you. It's hard to describe how bad it was. You hear people say it couldn't get out of its own way, like it really couldn't. I actually almost got ran over one time getting on the interstate because it just would not get up to speed. I had it to the floor and it would not get up to speed. And I thought it was going to. I thought it was, I thought it was fine. I just looked down at the speedo like, oh, we're not actually doing anything. Needless to say, that's got to go. And it will. A couple more days. We're going to cut these threads all the way through since I have a holding fixture now. Yeah, we're actually cutting some aluminum, but that's not going to hurt nothing. If anything, it might actually create a place for oil to stay between the bushings. The shaft doesn't even touch any of that. Clean your tap off. Take care of your machining tools. I'll take care of any of your tools, but especially the machining tools. They're the expensive ones. It was $10 for this tap. And I thought that was a pretty good deal. Distributor housing. Oh, I didn't pull the bushing out yet. Why didn't you tell me? I don't know what I'm going to do to pull that out. That's going to be tricky. Oh, I know what I can do. I can put the distributor hold down bracket back on it because it's a round shape and it sits down over the base of it. And I can have the exhaust pipe piece run into that. That'll make it a little easier. That means I'm going to go back out to the car. There'll be something else in here. So these bushings are $3.19 and the gear kit is $5.57 after tax. I think it was like $12, $13 worth of parts, all said and done. So this is a pretty inexpensive and relatively easy thing to do. I'm making it look more difficult because I'm not at all prepared to do this. I'm gonna go get the hold down, and I won't step on the cord too much this time. I stepped on it a little. I'm not even going to bother closing the door. I'm hoping to be done with this pretty soon. So yeah, gives me a little bit more area there. Oh yeah, look at that. Kind of offset it a little bit. That'll be perfect. Yep, we're moving. I think the worst part is getting it moving, and then it just comes right out. That's what it feels like. The nice thing is we're dealing with aluminum, which is a soft metal, and bronze, which is a soft bearing material. Actually, they're both bearing, could be used as bearing materials. But it makes it really easy to work with. Good. Oh, and you can see all the, look at that. Look at all the sludge. Yuck. Yucky. You see the sludge down inside there. Yuck. Change your oil, people. Not. Chances are that's not from lack of maintenance. That's just from oil barely gets up there and then it just leaves residue. But you should change your oil because that's what happens to oil that isn't changed enough. It gets sludgy. That's all down in your oil pan and stuff. So think I might have been cutting threads crooked. Interesting. The good news is I didn't really dig into the housing, but which means I need to pay better attention to what I'm doing with that while I'm tapping. Getting high? You want to get high? Probably gonna get copyrighted for that. If anybody even knows what that is anymore. That's okay. I've only watched South Park like once. Oh yeah, there's threads in there. Because I tapped it in there. Alright, so now what I gotta do is I'm gonna go ahead and do a jump cut because it's gonna get loud. And it's not even like loud and sparks getting thrown, it's just loud. So I'm gonna trim these down to the right length with the angle grinder. And that's really crude and I don't want you to watch. It's a little embarrassing. But it'll work and I want to get it done. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, I just did one of them and I figured you guys might actually want to see that. There's a couple of interesting things to note. Well, for one, this one's done. It just needs to be cleaned up, you know, deburred a little bit. But what's interesting to note is these bushings are called oilite bushings. Oilite. Like someone who lives in oil. So these are oil impregnated bronze bushings. And I didn't know if they were or not. I thought they might just be bronze, but they have oil in them because when they got hot while I'm grinding away material, the oil started coming out. So that's very interesting. There's a lot of schmoo in there. That is bronze, so it's not going to hurt anything. But you want ideally you want as little of it as possible. There's just little bronze dust everywhere. Alright, so that one's cleaned out. And it is in fact the right length. So one's done. I'll put that up here so it stays clean. I'll go ahead and show you the second. So I'm gonna what I was doing is kind of rotating it around on the surface so it was as uniform as I could get without cutting like a burr coming off of one side or, you know, like an angle ground into it because I'm not perfectly straight or whatever. But I guess I'll do it from this angle so I can see it better. Here goes nothing. So next time I do this, I'm gonna order 1/2 inch by 7/8 by 1 inch bushing, so I don't have to do this. It's fine in a pinch, but I'd rather not have to do all this. I'd rather just get them and slap them in there. You know, it just makes it easier. And this doesn't have to be super precise. The only thing that needs to be precise is when you're pushing them in, you actually get your end play correct. So a little bit shorter is actually going to be okay in this case, and they are slightly shorter. But there's not a lot of side forces. This doesn't spin at a high RPM. It spins at half your engine RPM. So the max this will ever see with virtually zero side loading, other than the, well, actually this isn't a spur gear, it's a helical gear. So it's only going to be loading up and down, not side to side. Spur gears load out. So this style of gear means that this isn't seeing a lot of force. All it needs is to be a good bearing material, and it is. And it kind of self-lubricates because there's oil in it. And you could see a little bit of it coming out. It starts to be an oily surface. So you can see all the bronze and oil and stuff I'm getting out of it. It's pretty nasty. You want to keep as little as that, and you're out of your. You want to keep as much of that out of your engine as possible. But I really doubt that that would hurt anything. It would just go in the oil filter, and it's bronze, so it's the same material as your bearings. So it really shouldn't do anything. But if more bronze got embedded in your bronze bushings or your bronze bearings or whatever, all it's going to do is act as a bearing. But it's still probably not the best thing in the world. You can have too much of a good thing. Alright, so those are a little bit off. They're a little bit of an angle to them, but they're the right length, so it should be good to go. This one I think you just send it home, because you're checking the end play between the end of the distributor housing and the shim. Gotta clean your shaft. Yeah, this dust comes off pretty easily, so there's a little bit of a taper on the bottom of the distributor housing. The write-up did mention using a used distributor shaft, but I don't think that's going to be a problem if I use like a piece of wood to aid in the installation of the bushings. Actually, I think I might use the press so that this happens a little bit easier. And I'll just make sure I can tell when it bottoms, when that bushing actually hits the surface. I'm going to pause this, and I'll be right back. Hopefully I don't break anything. Alright, so I'm back. Got that other bushing set down in there. It's nice and flush. So the next step is to figure out a good way to hold the wind was blowing and knocked some leaves around, scared me, thought somebody was walking in here. Thought I was about to have to shoot them. For real. You step up in here in the middle of the night while I'm working, and I didn't know anybody was coming. It's a pretty good way to get shot. Man, I got bronze dust everywhere. I'm supposed to be painting this tomorrow. You should probably keep that in a place where you don't want things to get everywhere. Nasty, so. So I'm trying to figure out a way to hold this, because that did work. So what I want to do, it's going to help for alignment. Since I have the bottom bushing in, it's going to help me align it to have that like that. So I guess I'll just use the little exhaust piece and the hold down as a receiving cup again, because that did work pretty well. Go ahead and thread this bolt in here to put the hold down down. Hold the hold down down. It's an interesting combination of words there. So this is the part where it gets a little bit tricky, because I have to make sure that I don't go too far, because actually pushing this down further is going to create more interplay. And once you're in, you can't really come back out. So that's going to make things kind of difficult for me. I'm going to do this on the floor. That way I'm not shaking the bench around. It's not the most sturdy thing in the world. Yeah, then it gets kind of difficult to turn, because I think it actually starts to make a tiny burr at the top of the bushing. You want to spin the distributor a little bit to break any high spots free. Starting to come through. I can see the hole for the cotter, or for the roll pin for the gear. Almost there. Well, that didn't even go anywhere. Trying to get an idea for how far in I need to go. Because I got to make room for that washer, and I do have an extra washer underneath the I do have an extra washer underneath this distributor plate. I kept one of them off the other one, or I kept one of them off of it in case I needed it. Yay, so I had a camera full thing go on there. I should have emptied that. I didn't think this video was going this long. But I got it in there. I'm about to, if you can see there, kind of see, pretty much got the hole lined up. I'm close enough to where I need to be to go ahead and start. You know, I can put that washer behind there, and I'm trying to make sure I got this distributor freed up enough to get it out of there. That reluctor wheel is sharp. It's like, it is really windy here. That reluctor wheel's cutting into my hand, trying to turn it with it. Get out of there. Alright. So I'll go ahead and wipe that up. So I'm going to take one of these washers out here. So you don't need both of them, you just need one. I'll probably save it just in case. But we are ready to go ahead. Drop that in there. That spins pretty freely. I'm pretty happy with the way that spins. And so I can go ahead and put this roll pin in, which is not going to be very fun on this bench. I really am not a huge fan of roll pins. They just suck to work with. Or spring pins, I should say. They're always just such a tight fit, which is great, except they suck to work with. This gear's not even drilled all the way through. You just push it in and, I mean, that's fine, but man, that's just weird. The gear's not drilled all the way through. I guess that's something new they're doing. Some new way to cut costs. We just won't drill the hole. I gotta get it started in the gear and not shoot it across the room. I don't really have a good way to hold this, like a V-block or something like that would be nice. But I don't have anything like that. I guess here's where the needle nose come into play. Someone's probably angry at me right now for doing it like this. Yeah, it actually started going in. It spins very nicely. That pin's not all the way in there. I'm not happy with that. I guess that's in as it's gonna get. I mean, it's in the gear and into the shaft. Oh, it's actually, okay, I see. It's actually pushing through to the other side. That's fine. See, it's actually trying to push through. I don't think that's going to distort the gear itself. Alright, so what I'm going to do to set the in play is actually give it a tap, try the feeler gauge, give it a tap until I get that 7/1000. And if I get like a tight fit with the 7, I'm going to leave it because it'll wear into what it needs to be anyway. And if you do too much, then you're going to end up with the same problem you already had. It could be bouncing, have your timing bouncing around. So if I get like a tight 7, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to get my feeler gauges. You know, I was sitting here talking about having the little tag that had the factory part number for the distributor on it, but I don't know where I stuck that. It's supposed to go under one of the screws, one of these little screws here. You put them on the side of the distributor and then the tag hangs off. I kind of wanted to put it back because it's sort of neat. Uh-oh, they're going to get you now. Whoever they are. I can always put the tag on later, but that kind of sucks. Maybe I stuck it in my pocket. I probably did. Is that it? Nope. Nope, no tag. That stinks. Alright, so we want 7 thousandths. I don't actually use 7 very often, so it still has Cosmoline on it. And hey, we're already there. It's actually kind of a loose 7, but shouldn't be any more than about an 8. Try an 8. That could have been bad if that was any farther than 8 or any farther than 7. If I had, you know, tapped on it any more and already did. It could have been ugly. I don't even know how much it matters, but it matters to me. It bugs me if that stuff's not right, so it's about an 8 or a 9. It's okay. I think it'll be alright. Anyway, it's I mean, there's like virtually zero anything there, so that should work a lot better than what's in it. As a matter of fact, I'll probably measure what's in it just to see what I'm improving, because I'm curious. I like the numbers. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and drop the breaker plate in. We'll go ahead and install that and set the we'll set the reluctor air gap. Drop that in. And we'll put the vacuum advance in tomorrow after we paint all that up. But it just goes in this slot right here. Here's a little arm that comes out of the vacuum advance can. A little arm here. It's got a little nipple on it. And that nipple goes right in that hole. Let's see if I can get good. Right in the hole that has the red with the grease. I put grease in there because that's like a pivot point, so you can lift up on it slightly because it's got a spring holding it down. So what we're doing is we're gonna loosen this up, and it's really pretty similar to setting your points if you've ever done that before. But you're just setting an air gap on the reluctor, which is this. You can see that little gap there. That's what you're changing. And you want that to be 8 thousandths. This distributor shaft does appear to be slightly bent. So I'm going to try to set it up to not go over about 10. And not touching, obviously. Someone did say that these have a tendency to be bent. I believe that they are probably right about that. Someone who claims something along those lines probably has experience doing something like this. I'll go ahead and set it to 8, snug it down, spin it, make sure nothing hits. Yep. Yeah, because the advance can's not hooked up, it does hit it. I'll have to set it to 8 on the one that is on the one that it's hitting. That kind of sucks. That means my rotor's not going to be sitting in there, or it's not going to be that stable in there. Maybe the other distributor doesn't have a bent shaft in it. Alright, we're about there. Actually, that's been kind of bad. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, actually. What's the distance on that? Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to pull this. Man, that sucks. I might have to see if I can. Where's the high spot? Let me see if I can bump it. Well, that did enough. I guess that moves pretty easily. That's pretty weird. I didn't want to have to do that. It's a pretty ugly way of doing that. It's got a little bit of run out. I think it'll still work, honestly. I don't like that, but I'm gonna run it and see what happens, and then, like I said, I'll have a whole nother distributor to check everything out on too. It's just, well, it is a magnet too. You know what? That's what that is. This thing's magnetic, and it's actually, because this isn't on it, it's actually pulling. It's actually pulling the air gap closed. It's moving it around. So I'm gonna have to have that attached before I can. I'm gonna have to have this on before I can set it. And then, you know, if I take it off and put it back on and all that, then it's gonna end up throwing it off. So I need to have all this painted and done, and then set the air gap, and then it'll be good. So we're done. We're good. This is finished up. This is my first time rebuilding a distributor, so all this stuff's a little bit new. So don't be alarmed. It'll be all okay. It's okay now. So, all right. So here's not the best distributor rebuild you're ever gonna see, but the shaft play is taken care of. It's tight. And the end play's good. I mean, it's 7 or 8 thousandths, somewhere in that range. Seems to be pretty good. So my timing should be straight, and then I'll just take care of the air gap when it's all together, and then drop it in, and then with the new cam chain do another video and let you know what kind of difference that makes. I'm sure it'll be big because 8 degrees is massive on cam timing. But we're finished up for now, and I'll see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe.